no one in the small desert town of Arroyo Bend expected anything unusual to happen that summer. It was a sleepy place in southern New Mexico. A handful of houses, an old gas station, one lonely diner, and miles of dusty land stretching toward the horizon. Life moved slow there. Too slow, some would say. But everything changed the moment the artifact was found. It started with a man named Caleb Morgan, a local guide who led private desert tour. On a blistering August afternoon, he took a group of tourists across an area known as Deadwind Flats, a place the old ranch families avoided. They said the wind there sounded wrong, like a whisper instead of a breeze. Caleb never believed in stories like that until that day. As the group stopped to rest, one of the tourists noticed something metallic half buried in the sand. At first, Caleb assumed it was just another piece of junk left behind by campers. But when he brushed the sand away, the object didn't look modern, or old, or even human. It was a smooth black disc, cold to the touch despite the 110-degree heat. Strange spiral symbols ran around its edge, glowing faintly blue as if the object were alive. The moment Caleb picked it up, a jolt ran through his hand, not painful, but terrifying. The wind fell silent. The world around him dimmed. And then he saw something aflash, like a memory that didn't belong to him. Dark skies, screaming winds, people running, stars disappearing one by one. Then, just as suddenly, he was back in the blinding sun of Deadwind Flats. He dropped the object immediately. The tourists were staring at him. One asked if he was okay. Caleb lied and said the heat got to him. They finished the tour quickly, but the entire time, Caleb's mind was racing. That night, he couldn't sleep. His mind kept replaying that flash, the sky turning black, the world drowning in darkness. He'd never seen anything like it. At 3:14 a.m., he broke. He grabbed his truck keys, took a flashlight, and drove back out to Deadwind Flats. He knew exactly where he left the object. He dug it out of the sand, wrapped it in an old jacket, and drove home fast. He had no idea that this single decision would reopen a mystery hidden for 7,400 years. A mystery tied to an ancient catastrophe so devastating that it erased entire cultures and plunged the world into chaos. The next morning, Caleb took the object to the only person he trusted with strange things, his childhood friend, Dr. Alina Hart, a climate historian and archaeologist who worked at a regional university. She had a reputation for being brilliant and stubborn, especially when someone suggested she couldn't explain something. When Caleb placed the wrapped object on her desk, she looked annoyed until she unwrapped it. Her expression froze. "This, Caleb, this is." She stopped, lifting the disc up toward the window. The blue carving flickered faintly. "This looks like a depiction of the Vila event," she whispered. Caleb frowned. "The what?" Alina set the disc down. locked her office door, and pulled out an old notebook filled with handwritten notes. 7,400 years ago, a sudden event happened that turned the skies dark all over the planet. Not for hours, not for days, but possibly for months. The sun was blocked, temperatures dropped, crops failed, civilizations vanished. It was a mini collapse of the early human world. Caleb shivered. How did it happen? That's the mystery, Alina said. Scientists have theories: volcanic eruptions, a massive dust cloud, a meteor impact, but nothing fits perfectly. There's no crater big enough, no ash layer thick enough. Nothing explains why the night sky went black too. She leaned closer to the disk. But I've never seen symbols like these, not from any known culture, and certainly not from that period. Caleb hesitated before telling her about the vision he saw. The darkness, the screaming wind, the fear. She didn't laugh. She didn't doubt him. She just stared silently at the disk, her face pale. Caleb, she whispered, this might be the first actual record of the event. And if so, the people who made it saw the sky go dark. They lived through it. And died through it, Caleb asked. Alina didn't respond. 2 days later, news of the disk leaked. Nobody knew how. Maybe one of the tourists. Maybe someone at the university. But it didn't matter. Within 48 hours, the Department of Geosciences, a private research firm, and a government climate agency all arrived in Arroyo Bend. They shut down Deadwind Flats. They blocked off roads. They took over the motel. And they wanted the disk badly. Alina refused to hand it over. Not without answers. A young researcher named Dr. Mason Grant, sent by the government, visited her lab. He seemed polite, too polite. We just want to help, he said. This object may be dangerous. Alina folded her arms. Dangerous to who? Mason hesitated just long enough for her to notice. That night, Caleb and Alina decided to study the disk on their own, secretly, before it vanished into some government vault. Alina placed the disk beneath a microscope. Caleb watched as the blue lines pulsed rhythmically like a heartbeat. Then the lights in the lab flickered. The temperature dropped, and the disk emitted a low humming sound, vibrating slightly on the table. Caleb stepped closer. Alina, is it supposed to do that? Nothing that's 7,400 years old is supposed to do this, she whispered. The humming grew louder. The blue glow spread, covering the entire disk. And then, suddenly, an image projected into the air above it. A hologram, a recording, a warning. A man's voice spoke in a language neither of them had ever heard. His face was blurry, distorted by time, but the fear in his eyes was unmistakable. The skis behind him were dark pitch black, and something enormous moved inside the clouds. Caleb swallowed hard. Alina, what is that? She shook her head slowly, terrified. I think, Caleb, I think we just unlocked the first eyewitness account of the event. that almost ended the world. The hologram flickered like an old film reel, the man's trembling face shifting in and out of clarity. Behind him, the world looked wrong, an endless black sky swirling with something alive, something heavy, something that shouldn't exist. Caleb felt his throat tighten. He took a small step back as the man in the hologram raised a shaking hand and pointed upward. His mouth moved quickly, speaking a language older than any known civilization. "Alina, can you translate it?" Caleb whispered. Alina didn't answer. Her eyes were wide, fixed on the scene. Fear, shock, curiosity, all of it tangled in her expression. Then suddenly, the hologram sharpened, and the voice grew loud and desperate. The man screamed. The wind howled. Something enormous cracked across the sky, like a shadow with wings. Then, in a flash, the projection went dark. The disk fell silent. The lab plunged into stillness. Caleb swallowed hard. What did we just watch? Alina slowly placed the disk back on the table, her hands trembling. "I don't know," she whispered. But that recording wasn't made with ancient tools. That was advanced. That was purposeful. Someone wanted this message preserved. And buried, Caleb added. Maybe for us to find now. Alina paced the room, muttering to herself. 7,400 years ago. That was the period when early farming cultures in the Middle East suddenly vanished. When the Sahara transformed. When entire settlements collapsed without explanation. And now we're seeing an actual witness. She stopped walking. Caleb, this might mean the darkening wasn't a natural event. Caleb's heart thudded hard. Then what was it? Alina didn't answer. Instead, she turned off the lab lights and replayed the hologram in the dark. This time, they watched more carefully. The man's clothing was strange, layered animal skins, mixed with woven material far advanced for the era. His surroundings looked like a stone shelter reinforced with metal rods. Behind him, lines were carved into the wall, star patterns, circles, and a looming spiral. The spiral was identical to the symbol carved on the disk. Alina, Caleb said, stepping closer. Zoom in on that. She adjusted the microscope's connected display, and the spiral enlarged. It wasn't random. It was a diagram showing a burst of light, then a spreading cloud, then darkness falling over the sky. A sequence, a timeline, a warning. Before Alina could study it further, the lab door rattled violently. They froze. Another bang, this time harder. Alina Hart opened the door. It was Dr. Mason Grant. Caleb whispered, "He knows." Alina quickly grabbed the disk and shut off the hologram. The room returned to normal lighting. Mason's voice came again, more aggressive. "Open it now." Alina signaled Caleb toward the back exit. He nodded and slipped out, the disk wrapped under his jacket. Footsteps echoed down the hallway, more than one person. "Alina," Mason said through the door, "we have orders now." This isn't optional. She opened the door slightly, blocking the entrance with her body. I told you, the artifact is under review. Mason's eyes narrowed. Where is it? What artifact? She replied calmly. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Alina, listen to me. This thing is not just a cultural object. It's a containment device. Alina felt her blood run cold. A what? Mason scanned the room behind her. We've been tracking similar items for decades. Most were destroyed. Some fell into remote regions. But none activated. Yours did. And that means something is still awake. Alina's heart pounded. Awake? What are you talking about? Before he could answer, a loud crash sounded from behind the building. Mason's head snapped toward the noise, and he pushed past Alina, yelling orders to his team. Alina used the chaos to slip out the back door and sprint toward Caleb, who was crouched behind her car, clutching the disc. You okay? Caleb whispered. No time, she said breathlessly. Get in. We're leaving. They sped off the campus parking lot and onto the highway, dust swirling behind them. Neither spoke for several minutes. Finally, Caleb turned to her. Alina, what did he mean by awake? She gripped the steering wheel tighter. I think there's something about the 7,400-year event that never ended, she said softly. Something that didn't die with those ancient people. She glanced at the disc, glowing faintly in Caleb's hands. And it's responding now. Responding to what? Caleb asked. Alina didn't answer immediately. Her eyes were distant. The skis went dark back then, she said. Not from volcanoes or dust. It was too global, too sudden, too coordinated. Coordinated by who? Caleb whispered. Alina exhaled shakily. Something that comes and goes over long cycles. Something that was here 7,400 years ago, and maybe thousands of years before that. Caleb felt a cold fear settle in his chest. You're saying, he said slowly, that the darkness had a cause. Alina nodded, and whatever caused it left warnings for future generations. Caleb swallowed, and the government knows. They've always known, Alina said bitterly. But they've never caught a device that activated. Caleb stared at the disc. What happens when it fully activates? He asked quietly. Alina didn't look at him. She kept her eyes forward, the desert road stretching endlessly ahead. When the skis went dark last time, she said, voice trembling, ancient people described shapes. Something moving above the clouds. Something massive. She finally looked at Caleb. Her eyes filled with fear she couldn't hide. And if the disc is waking up, she shivered. Maybe those things are returning too. The highway stretched ahead like a thin black ribbon cutting through endless sand. Alina drove fast, too fast, but Caleb didn't say a word. His eyes were locked on the disc, wrapped in his jacket, but still glowing faintly through the cloth like a pulse. A reminder that whatever happened 7,400 years ago was not done. The sun had dipped low, turning the desert gold. Shadows stretched across the land like long fingers reaching for the road. Caleb noticed something odd. Even with the sun still up, the light felt weaker, dimmer, almost sickly. "Alina, does the sky look different to you?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer, but her jaw tightened. They pulled off the highway and into an abandoned rest stop. A cracked stone picnic table, a faded map board, nothing else. Alina killed the engine. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Caleb said, "You know something you haven't told me." Alina sighed. "When I was in grad school, I came across a restricted document, a climate anomaly chart from satellite readings taken in the 1970s. A strange, low-frequency energy pattern was detected above the Pacific, matching what scientists believed happened during the 7,400-year event." "Matching how?" Caleb asked. She turned toward him. "It was shaped like a vortex. Not a storm, but a shadow. A solid mass blocking light. And it wasn't moving like a storm system. It was moving like it had purpose." Caleb stared at her. "Are you saying the skis went dark because something covered them?" Alina didn't blink. "Yes. And you think it's coming back?" Alina looked up at the sky. The disk activated for a reason. Ancient warnings don't just wake up randomly. Before Caleb could respond, the wind around them stopped. Completely. Not a breeze, not a whisper. Just silence. He stepped out of the car, scanning the horizon. The world felt frozen. No insects, no birds, no shifting air. "Alina," he said slowly, pointing upward. "Look." The sky had turned a strange color, not dark, but dull, almost tinted like the world was under a dying light bulb. Alina stepped out beside him. "This isn't right." Then the disk vibrated violently in Caleb's jacket. "Alina," Caleb yelled. The glow burst through the cloth, bright and blue. The hum grew louder, echoing across the silent desert like a heartbeat. Suddenly, the disk projected another hologram directly into the sky above them. Larger, clearer, more intense than before. This time, it wasn't a person. It was a map. A world map from 7,400 years ago, glowing with bright red zones spreading across continents. Dark patches covered entire regions. Symbols circled key locations: Mesopotamia, the Sahara, Central America, the Arctic. Alina gasped. "These are the collapse zones, places where people suddenly disappeared without explanation." The map zoomed in on one region, the American Southwest. Right where they stood, the hologram flickered and shifted to show a massive, swirling shadow descending from above. A darkness with a shape, a center, and something like wings stretching across the sky. Caleb stumbled back. "That's what the witness saw. That's what he recorded." Alina whispered. "It covered the sun. It covered everything." The hologram changed again. This time it showed the aftermath: dust storms, dried rivers, failing crops, abandoned settlements, people moving in large groups, escaping the dark zone. Then lines of text appeared in the ancient spiral script. Caleb stared helplessly. "You can read that." "Some of it," Alina whispered. "I've seen parts of this symbol system before, but never complete." "What does it say?" She leaned closer. "It says, when the sky bleeds its shadow, run." Caleb felt his stomach drop. "Run where?" Alina shook her head. "It doesn't say. It just warns that once the shadow arrives, the world changes." Before they could say more, a long, low rumble filled the air. The ground trembled beneath their feet. A faint vibration, a distant roar, something massive, shifting in the sky. Caleb looked up, his breath caught in his throat. The sun was half covered. Something darker than night was sliding across it. Not like an eclipse, not like moon shadow, but like smoke, thick, alive, stretching its tendrils outward. "Alina," Caleb whispered, "tell me that's a cloud." Alina's face was pale. "Clouds don't move like that." The disk suddenly dimmed, its hologram fading. The wind returned harsh and cold, slamming into them like an unseen wall. Caleb covered his face. "What's happening?" Alina yelled over the gusts. "The disk is reacting to whatever that thing is." The sky thundered again, but not like normal thunder. This sound was deeper, like the groan of something enormous distorting the air. The darkness in the sky thickened. Caleb grabbed Alina's arm. "We need to leave, now." They jumped into the car. Alina floored the engine and sped back onto the highway, dust spiraling behind them as the wind roared like a living beast. Caleb looked back through the rear window, his hands trembling. The darkness was growing, stretching, spreading, reaching across the sky, moving unnaturally fast. "Alina," he whispered, "what if this is what killed them 7,400 years ago?" Alina's voice shook. "Then we're watching the beginning of it happening again." And as they sped down the highway, the sky behind them turning black, the disk pulsed one more time. This time, the hologram showed only 2 words. Words Alina recognized instantly. "It returns." The villagers remembered that night for the rest of their lives, not because they understood it, but because something ancient and indescribable broke into their world. A night that began with flute songs and crackling firewood ended with screams swallowed by the wind, as if the earth itself had exhaled a warning. Aaron sat beside the elder sailor, who stared into the flames with the expression of someone listening to a distant voice no one else could hear. "Tell me," Aaron whispered, "have you ever seen the sky behave like this?" Sailor's jaw tightened. "Once," he said, "and I prayed never to see it again." Before Aaron could press further, a shrill cry tore through the camp. The sound came from a shepherd boy sprinting toward them, eyes wild. "The stars," he shouted, pointing upward. "There, they're going out." Aaron shot to his feet and looked up, and froze. Above them, the stars were flickering. not like torchlight or candle flame, but like dying embers, fading, swelling, dimming again. One by one, constellations broke apart as the night sky warped into something unfamiliar. A deep hum trembled through the earth, low and distant, like something massive shifting beneath the crust. The air thickened, pressing against the villagers' chests. "What is this?" someone whispered. The hum deepened. Then the stars vanished. All at once, every single one. Darkness swallowed the world total, absolute, unnatural. The moon remained, pale and trembling, but the sky around it was a black void. And from the void, a blue glow began to pulse. It wasn't lightning. It wasn't fire. It was something older, something Aaron felt in his bones before he saw it. A faint ribbon of pale blue light stretched across the horizon, shimmering like the breath of a giant sleeping creature. The villagers backed away. Even the wind died, as if afraid to touch it. Sailor whispered, "It has returned." "What has?" Aaron asked, feeling his heartbeat hammer. "The Sky River." Aaron frowned. "That's just a legend." "Legends," Sailor replied, "are memories so old we forget who first told them." The glowing river widened, flowing across the heavens like a cosmic wound. Then streaks of blue began to rain downward, slow at first, then faster, like silent comets descending toward the earth. Aaron grabbed Sailor's arm. Shelter now. Villagers scattered like frightened birds, mothers clutching children, men dragging the elderly toward the earth homes carved into the hill. The blue streaks didn't strike like fire. They dissolved before touching the ground, sending out ripples of cold air that made skin crawl. But even without impact, their presence felt wrong, intrusive, intelligent. For a moment, the world stood in breathless terror. Then came the sound. A thunderous, bone-shaking crack tore through the sky, like an enormous tree splitting, like the earth's spine breaking. The hills trembled. Pots shattered. Torches blew out. A second crack followed. Then a third. Each one closer. Aaron threw himself over a child as waves of frigid air rolled across the camp. The blue sky river churned like stormy water, swirling, twisting, spiraling downward. And then something stepped through. Not a creature, not a god, a shape, a colossal silhouette, tall as mountains, made entirely of shimmering blue vapor. Its edges flickered like unstable flame. No face, no arms, just a towering, shifting outline, an echo of something that didn't belong to Earth. The villagers fell to their knees in horror. Even Sailor trembled. "The Watcher," he whispered. Aaron swallowed hard. "What does it watch?" Sailor shook his head, voice breaking. "The skis, the ice, the balance. And when the balance breaks, the Watcher moved. Slow, silent. Every step made the ground shake. Aaron forced himself up, heart pounding hard enough to bruise his ribs. "It sees us." "No," Sailor rasped. "It sees through us." A gust of freezing wind swept across the land, turning the soil white with frost. Chickens collapsed in the fields, frozen solid. The river stopped flowing. Aaron's breath crystallized as he whispered, "This is death." But Sailor grabbed him. "No, not death," warning. The towering watcher raised its formless head toward the moon. For an instant, its body brightened, brilliant, and terrifying, as if gathering the entire sky's light into itself. A pulse burst forth. Blue light swept across the land like a tidal wave. Trees bent. Stones cracked. The villagers screamed and shielded their eyes. And then the light collapsed inward. The watcher shrank. The sky river folded into itself. The stars flickered back to life, one by one. Silence returned. The villagers crawled from their shelters, shivering, weeping, confused. A mother clutched her daughter. "Is it over?" Sailor shook his head slowly. No, this was only the opening of the wound, the first breath of the world unraveling. He pointed to the northern horizon, and Aaron's blood ran cold, because far away, faint, but unmistakable, a line of blue fire crawled across the sky, stretching from one end of the world to the other. A sky scar, a tear, and it was growing. "What do we do?" Aaron whispered. Sailor closed his eyes. "We seek the truth buried beneath the ice, the place where this all began." Aaron exhaled a shaky breath. "The old story." "Yes," Sailor said. "The one your father died to protect." Aaron felt the world tilt. As the past he ran from came crashing back. "We go north," Sailor said, "before the sky breaks again." Aaron looked up at the repaired sky, still trembling, still wounded. And for the first time, he wondered if the earth was trying to warn them. The watcher had not attacked. It had signaled. It had reacted to something coming, something worse, and the true darkness had not yet arrived. They began the journey before dawn, when the sky was still bruised with faint traces of blue where the scar had been. No one spoke of it openly, but everyone felt it. The sky was no longer whole. It was like walking under a cracked ceiling, never knowing when it might collapse again. Aaron led the small group north. Sailor, 2 hunters, a healer named Nira, and 3 others chosen for strength and silence. The elders had argued, some weeping, some furious, but Sailor's word carried weight older than the village itself. "The ice remembers," he had told them, "and memory is the only weapon we have left." As the land rose, warmth vanished. Grass gave way to frost-hardened soil. Streams slowed, then froze mid-flow, trapped like glass. Even the animals had gone silent. No birds, no insects, just wind, sharp and restless. On the 3rd day, they reached the place the elders spoke of only in whispers, a valley where ice should not exist. A massive frozen sheet lay between jagged cliffs, smooth as polished stone, glowing faintly blue beneath the surface. It pulsed slowly, like a sleeping heart. Nira stepped back in fear. "This ice is alive." Sailor nodded grimly. not alive, remembering. Aaron felt a strange pull in his chest, a pressure behind his eyes. The closer he stepped, the louder the hum became, the same low vibration that had shaken the village when the watcher appeared. "This is where it came from," Aaron whispered. "No," Sailor corrected. "This is where it was sealed." They reached the center of the ice field, where ancient stone pillars jutted upward, half buried, carved with the same spiral symbols Aaron had seen on old cave walls as a child. He had been warned never to touch them. Now, Sailor placed his hand against the ice. The hum surged. Cracks raced outward like lightning frozen in time. Blue light seeped through the fractures, and the temperature dropped so suddenly that breath burned the lungs. The hunters raised their spears in panic. We should not be here, but it was already too late. The ice split open with a thunderous crack, revealing a stairway descending into darkness. Stone steps, carved with precision, no tribe could match. "The path beneath the ice," Sailor whispered. Aaron stared. "Who built this?" Sailor's voice shook. "Those who survived the first darkness and knew it would return." They descended slowly, torches flickering weakly as the air grew colder and denser. The walls glowed faintly, etched with scenes, people pointing at the sky, stars vanishing, crops dying, oceans retreating. Then something else. Figures not human, tall, featureless, watching. Aaron swallowed hard. The watcher. "Not one," Sailor said. "Many." They reached a massive chamber, circular and impossibly deep. At its center stood a pillar of ice and crystal fused together, suspended above the ground by unseen force. Inside it, something moved, not violently, not aggressively, waiting. The hum intensified, vibrating through bone and blood. Nira dropped to her knees. "This place, it bends the soul." Sailor approached the pillar, eyes filled with grief. "This is the heart of the sky." Aaron stared. "That thing above us, the darkness, is this its heart?" "No," Sailor said softly. "It is our fault." The carvings around the chamber began to glow, activating like memory awakened. Images flooded the walls, ancient people building massive ice barriers in the north, diverting rivers, sealing something deep beneath the frozen world. Then a final image, the sky tearing open, something falling, not arriving, crashing. Aaron's breath caught. It wasn't summoned, it impacted. Sailor nodded. A fragment of something larger, not a god, not a demon, a cosmic force, a regulator of climate and energy. When it struck Earth, it disrupted everything. "And the darkness?" Aaron asked. "The darkness was its reaction," Sailor said. "When disturbed, it absorbs light, heat, balance. It shuts the system down to stabilize itself." Aaron's hands trembled. So when the skis went dark, the planet was being reset. "Yes," Sailor said, "and we interfered." The ancient people had learned how to trap the force beneath ice. slowing its cycle, delaying the shutdown. But delaying balance, Sailor said, voice breaking, comes with a price. The hum surged violently. Cracks spread across the pillar. Aaron shouted, "It's destabilizing." "Because it's waking," Sailor said. "Because the delay is ending." A shockwave rippled through the chamber. The hunters were thrown back. Torches extinguished. Blue light filled the room. And then a voice. Not sound, not words. A pressure inside the mind. Balance, APPROACHES. Interference, DATACTAD. Nira screamed, clutching her head. "It's inside us." Sailor stood firm, tears streaming. "We delayed the darkness once for our survival." The voice responded, cold and vast. Delay caused cascade failure. System REQUIRES correction. Aaron stepped forward, heart pounding. What happens now? The ice pillar fractured further, revealing a core of swirling darkness and light. The answer came heavy, final. SKIES will dim. Temperature will fall. CIVILIZATIONS will move or end. Aaron felt sick. You're going to do it again. Yes, Sailor whispered. Then why show us this? A pause. Then the truth that crushed them all. Because you must choose. Release or total collapse. The chamber shook violently. The heart of the sky was breaking free. And above them, far beyond stone and ice, the stars began to flicker once more. The chamber trembled harder than before. Stone dust rained from the ceiling as the ice pillar cracked wider. Blue light and shadow twisting together like two forces fighting for control. Aaron could barely stand. Every breath burned his lungs. The pressure inside his head felt like the world itself was pressing down on his thoughts. Release it, he shouted over the rising hum. Or everything collapses. What does that even mean? Sailor stepped forward, his old body shaking but his voice steady. It means the balance will return, but not gently. Oceans will shift. Ice will spread. Warm lands will die. People will flee or starve. Nira cried out, "That will kill millions." Sailor turned to her, eyes full of sorrow. It already did the last time. The walls around them glowed brighter, showing visions more clearly now. Coastlines pulling back as seas cooled, forests turning brittle, herds collapsing, entire cultures abandoning their homes. Not wiped out in a single moment, but slowly erased by cold, hunger, and darkness. Aaron clenched his fists. Then, why did they seal it in the first place? Sailor looked at him. Because they were afraid to let the world change. The voice returned, stronger now, vibrating through the chamber like a living presence. Interference, DATACTAD, for too long. System instability critical. The ice pillar split open with a deafening crack. The heart of the sky was no longer hidden. It wasn't a solid object. It was a sphere of flowing darkness and light, rotating slowly, absorbing and releasing energy in waves. It felt ancient, older than mountains, older than memory. Aaron felt tears stream down his face without knowing why. Standing before it felt like standing before the truth of existence itself. "This thing isn't evil," he whispered. "No," Sailor said softly. "It's indifferent." A sudden blast of freezing air knocked the group backward. One of the hunters slammed into the wall, unconscious. Nira screamed, the ceiling. Cracks raced across the stone above them. The chamber would not hold much longer. Aaron staggered back to his feet. "If we release it, can we guide it, control the damage?" The heart pulsed. "Control is not possible. Only alignment." Sailor looked at Aaron sharply. "It's asking us to stop resisting, to let the cycle happen." Aaron thought of the village, of children laughing around firelight, of crops, rivers, warm nights under familiar stars. "All of that will vanish," he said. "Yes," Sailor replied, "but something else will survive." The chamber shook violently again. Above them, through cracks in the ceiling, a deep blue glow leaked downward, the sky reacting to what was happening below. "The darkness has already begun," Nira said, voice trembling. "We're running out of time." Aaron stepped toward the heart. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but something deeper pulled him forward. "What happens if we don't release it?" he asked. The answer came instantly. Total system failure, uncontrolled shutdown, extinction level event. The word echoed in Aaron's mind. Extinction, not slow collapse, not migration. An end. Sailor dropped to his knees. Then the choice was never really a choice. "No," Aaron said quietly. "It's responsibility." He turned to the others. "If we do this, history will curse us." Sailor met his eyes. "Or thank you long after we are gone." Aaron placed his hand against the swirling surface of the heart. It was cold, not freezing, but empty, like touching the absence of warmth. Images flooded his mind. Ice sheets expanding, seas cooling, storms reshaping the land, people moving south, new paths forming, new stories beginning. Then another vision. Far in the future, people digging, finding symbols, asking questions, trying to understand why the world once went dark. "They will never know the truth," Aaron whispered. "Knowledge is not required for survival," the voice replied. "Only balance." The ceiling cracked wide open. Blue light poured in from above, flooding the chamber as the sky river reopened directly over the valley. Wind howled downward, tearing at clothing, ripping stones free. Sailor shouted, "Aaron, now." Aaron pressed both hands against the heart. "I accept the cycle," he said aloud, voice shaking. "I release you." The heart responded. Light exploded outward, not destructive, but overwhelming. The chamber vanished in a wave of blue and white. The ice above shattered. The valley collapsed inward, and far above, the sky darkened completely as the heart rose, dissolving into the heavens like smoke, returning to a wound. The group was thrown backward by the blast. Aaron felt himself falling, Cold, silence, then nothing. When Aaron opened his eyes, the sky was gray. Not black, not blue. Muted. Still, snow drifted gently through the air. He lay half buried in frost at the edge of the collapsed valley. Around him, the others stirred alive, battered, shaken. Neera sobbed softly. "It's over, isn't it?" Sailor looked up at the sky, his face unreadable. "No," he said, "it has begun." Aaron struggled to his feet. The world felt different, heavier, colder, quieter. The sun was there, but dimmed, like seen through thick smoke. "The darkness didn't destroy everything," Aaron said. Sailor nodded. "It never does, it reshapes." Aaron looked north, where the ice spread farther than before, creeping slowly but endlessly across the land. "People will flee," Aaron said. "They'll tell stories. They'll forget why this happened." Sailor placed a hand on his shoulder. "That is how the world survives." Aaron swallowed hard. "And someday," he said, "someone will ask, what happened when the skis went dark?" Sailor looked up at the muted sky. "And they will never know how close the world came to ending." The cold did not arrive all at once. It crept forward in quiet steps, like a thief in the night, stealing warmth a little more each season. Winters stretched longer. Summers weakened. Rivers froze earlier and thawed later. The world did not end, but it changed so deeply that nothing was ever the same again. Aaron returned to the village weeks later, or what remained of it. Snow blanketed the fields where grain once grew. Roofs sagged under frost. Fires burned constantly now, even during the day. The people greeted him with hollow eyes and relief tangled with fear. "You lived," one whispered. "Did you see the sky spirit?" Another asked. "Is the darkness gone?" Aaron had no simple answers. "It has passed through," he said, "but it has left its mark." That night, the elders gathered around the fire as Aaron told them everything: the ice chamber, the heart of the sky, the choice that could not be avoided. Some wept, some grew angry. A few stared silently into the flames, understanding more than they spoke. "So we are doomed?" one elder asked. Aaron shook his head. "No, but we must move south, follow the warmth." Sailor, his hair now fully white, nodded slowly. "This is what happened before. Those who survived learned when to leave. The migration began before the next winter. Families packed what they could carry. The old songs faded, replaced by new prayers whispered to unfamiliar stars. Along the journey, villages joined them, refugees from lands already claimed by ice. Some called Aaron a savior. Others called him a curse. He accepted both. Years passed. Children were born who never knew the warm world Aaron remembered. They grew up believing the cold was normal, the dim sun the way it had always been. Stories of the night the stars vanished became legends, exaggerated, doubted, slowly reshaped into myth. The sky broke, storytellers said. A god walked the earth. The world almost ended. Aaron said nothing, because the truth was heavier than myth. As decades rolled on, the sky stabilized. The darkness did not return in full. The cold settled into a new balance. Crops adapted. Animals migrated. Humanity endured, scarred, smaller, but alive. And deep beneath the ice of the north, the path collapsed, sealing itself forever. The heart of the sky was gone, but not forgotten. Long after Aaron's bones turned to dust, long after his name vanished from memory, the world moved forward. Ice retreated slowly. Warmth returned unevenly. Civilizations rose in new places, unaware of the sacrifice buried beneath their feet. Until one day, a group of travelers stood on a frozen plain. Thousands of years later, they were not hunters. They carried tools of stone and copper. They spoke in careful words, studying strange spiral symbols carved into rock, revealed by melting ice. This doesn't match any known culture, one said. Another knelt beside a half-buried pillar. These markings, they look like warnings. Above them, clouds drifted peacefully across a blue sky. The world had forgotten, but the ice had not. And far beyond Earth, beyond stars and time, the system that governed balance continued its silent watch. Cycle stabilized, interference ceased, memory preserved in fragments. The skis did not darken again, not because the threat was gone, but because the lesson had been learned. The earth had nearly shut down once, and humanity had survived, not through power, not through knowledge, but through a single impossible choice made in the dark, a choice no one would ever remember, except the sky